The next person I'll recognize is someone that I have not known for a very long time. Less than a year, in fact. But this individual is a person that in the few months that I've known him, I've got to get very close to him and appreciate him not only as a human being, but also as a friend and a co-patriot in the field of freedom and justice. And this person, someone just told me about him early in the year before our conference, and got on the phone, talked to him, and I thought, man, this guy's smart. This guy's not only smart, he knows his stuff. These guys act together. And this person had a pretty big personal challenge. He had a pretty because of the fact that Big Brother was after him. They tried to put him away, try to make an example out of him. And I thought, well, this is where we gotta, pull all punches, and let's go for it. And I told him, come on down to our conference in California in March. And I told him that we're gonna try to raise a little funds as much as we can to help you win, because I knew this person was gonna win. In my heart, I knew this guy is real because he's an experienced lawyer over 25 years, and he had studied the tax law very well, and we need more poster childs that win in the freedom movement. People like Joel Bannister that actually, succeed and show you folks, how you can follow their footsteps. We need more heroes that are willing to take the front line and actually win. I appreciate everybody that goes in the front line, but when a person wins on top of that, well, you got my admiration, and I'm going to fall right behind that person and say, tell me where to go. And so Freedom Law School, in recognition of your dedication to bring forth justice, rule of law, restoration of the U.S. Constitution for all Americans, and for defending freedom for all Americans, and your courageous stand for truth in taxation, recognizes you, Thomas Cryer, as Tax Freedom Hero of 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you your speaker for this evening, a winner, a dedicated patriot, Mr. Tom Cryer. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me set this down here where it'll be safe. A bit humbled by that, particularly since I know that the contention that I have achieved a victory against the federal government or the IRS is really not the entire story. And I believe we're getting a little feedback. We can adjust that. Sir? All right. You like to move around. I don't like getting tied down. I don't like getting locked up. But it's not exactly true. It's not my victory. It's our victory. Back in February, when all of I started really suffering because the IRS had taken my practice and wrecked it. 35 years building a practice, doing well, had a lot of families, third generation clients, companies I'd taken care of for 35 years, people I'd been solving problems for 3 generations, which was why I went into the practice of law to start with. And all of those were lost. And I'm down to the ground zero. And I called upon this community, which I really knew absolutely nothing about, until just recently. And this community responded. And you sent money to help, and you got me through. I did not have to defend this case out of a cardboard box in downtown Shreveport. I could not have done what I did without you. It's not my victory, it's our victory. And I thank you. And that's the first thing I want to get across tonight, is that I owe you, the tax honesty community, a debt that I will never, ever be able to repay for the rest of my life, because you have given me the rest of my life. And thank you again. There's going to be a lot of discussion over this conference about myths that the IRS has succeeded in selling to the American people. And those myths have placed a collar around their neck that they are too ignorant to feel. I've often said that the only difference between a slave and an ignorant man is that the slave feels his chains. The ignorant man isn't aware of them. We need to make him see and feel his chains. We need to make those chains hurt him. We need to make those chains chafe his neck until he is ready to join us and he is as aware of us, of the slavery that's being imposed upon the American people. This has to stop. And we are the beginning of the end of that slavery. But instead of talking about the Internal Revenue Service's myths and the scam that they are perpetrating on the American people, and particularly and most harshly against those who are working Americans, where what is being taken from them is the cream of the standard of living that they have earned with their own toil, with their own labor, that belongs only to them, and to whom they only have God to be responsible for, because the government didn't give them that, and they owe the government nothing for it. Those extra dollars that come off the top make a huge difference in how their children are educated, make a huge difference in how their families are fed, make a huge difference in the amount of, or the type of housing and the standard of living they can provide for their families. That is the worst part of the theft, is that they're taking the best part of what they have earned, the cream. But that's got to stop. And one of the ways that we've got to stop that is we have to get unified. One of the first things that I was shocked at when my introduction to the tax honesty community was my introduction through an invitation from Paymon to come and address his conference in Irvine, California in February. And I went with the help of a supporter who bought my airfare and provided my lodging. And I was shocked at how the tax honesty community was so fragmented. It not only was so fragmented that it was pulling and pushing in different directions, but it was also fighting among themselves. I started hearing about friction. I heard hearing about personalities. I started hearing about resentments. And I'm thinking, good grief, guys, whose side are you on? I mean, who are you fighting here? Who's the enemy here? Who's doing something wrong? And then I started finding out about some of the underlying problems of the fact that there are very few attorneys in this community. Jeff Dickstein, Larry Beecraft, Oscar Steele. I've heard a few other names, but I've met very few attorneys in this community. We need attorneys because we got, just like, the sick need surgeons. To know about a brain, I don't care how much you study on it, that doesn't mean you can go out and start practicing brain surgery on your neighbors. And that's what we've been doing. And I started learning about all these weird things that I'd never known about before. And I'm not going to go into the names of any of them, but you know the ones I'm talking about. The ones I've been calling on my radio program and in other discussions, the Tinfoil Hat Brigade, which I think originates primarily in the IRS. I think they sit there with their feet up on their desk and think of what wacky goofball theory can we come up to introduce to this community and infect them with to make them look like a bunch of idiots and raving lunatics. And then they put it out there, and a certain amount of folks will grab it up because they don't know any better, and because there are not enough attorneys out here to say, just like I tell them when they call in with these things, don't eat that, Elmer. Put it down, go wash your hands, and don't play with the kids that gave that to you again. We need to stop and take a good hard look at ourselves. If we were to study ourselves as hard as we've studied the IRS and the Internal Revenue Code and the regulations and the Internal Revenue Manual, as well as other laws that don't apply, we would be a whole lot better off. So let's take a quick look. I found two big myths in the tax honesty community that I would love to dissolve, that I would love to just see go away, not exist anymore. One is this concept that through taking a piece of law over here and another little case over here, or a fragment of that case, and taking another misquote or a quote out of context of the statute over here, I can combine the eye of a newt and a toad's tail and a rabbit's left rear foot and boil it up into a new concoction, and I have invented law. And because I've invented this heretofore non-existent law, it is my property. I've got a proprietary interest, and so I can put it up together, print it up, and sell it as a newly discovered law. That isn't where law comes from, is it, Jeff? It comes from the lawgivers. That's one. And the sad thing about that is that they are selling a lot of folks, but because it's so easy to show somebody there's no law making them liable. It's so easy to show somebody that the IRS is defrauding them out of their money. It's so easy to show them and to prove to them that they do not owe taxes on their hard-earned personal wages, salaries, and other earnings. And once somebody sees that, it's like learning there is a tiger in the village, and it's only human nature to want to grab the spear and run out there and get it before it eats mama and the kids. I mean, isn't that natural? Isn't that the good thing to do? So these are all well-intended people who made these discoveries about the IRS myths, and so they're looking for, praying for, desperate for a spear. So somebody's out there, if there's a demand, you can bet somebody's going to supply it. And somebody says, here, take this magic spear. It may not look like much. Matter of fact, it kind of looks like rubber. But it doesn't hurt humans, but it's lethal to beasts. And when you go in that cave and you show him this magic rubber spear, he's going to scream, and he's going to go back into the bowels and recesses of the cave and never be seen again. And you'll be the hero, and we'll carry you back to the village on our shoulders. And he's thinking, wow, that's what needs to be done. I'll go do it. And he grabs up the spear and he runs out there. And while he's screaming, the guy's outside the cave counting his money. Now, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to ruffle feathers. And I'm not naming anybody in particular. But the point is that we need to take a good, hard look at what we have in our hands before we go off into the cave. We have been sending people into the cave one at a time for 30 years. John Kottmeyer's been in this business and trying to educate people and be careful about what he puts out. But we've been sending people up against the beast. We've been going up. I went up against the beast one-on-one for all of these years. And look at how many lives have been wrecked. What have we accomplished with that? The second myth that concerns me is the notion that the IRS is holding some sort of cruel sweepstakes, some sort of contest, that when somebody comes up with the perfect combination of tax forms filled out in the perfect way, raising the exact combination of legal points, that the IRS is going to say, whoa, we have a winner, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have to stop stealing everybody's wages and personal earnings. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. There is no sweepstakes. There is no silver bullet. Again, that's a one-on-one thing, and whenever the beast turns on one man or one woman, guess who loses? And the reason that it loses is because in the cave, the beast defines reality. He says what is fair and what is foul. He says who is in, who's out, who's safe, and who's out. And he keeps a scoreboard, and he pencil whips you. Outside the cave, we define reality. We do that in the light of day. The beast, when truth is encountered, is defenseless. It's as toxic to the beast as oxygen is to algae. We have to find a way to fight the beast outside the cave. We have to find a way to fight the beast in the strength of numbers. And we have to find a way to fight the beast together where it cannot single any of us out to be hauled off to the slaughterhouse, back to the cave. Now, when I got into this community, I was ignorant enough of it to not know what was going on, but I'm an old political hack. For many, many years, I thought that there was a political solution through one of the parties. All right, okay, all right, you got me on one, all right. And I got high enough up in that party, though, to where I was dealing with the White House on 2 or 3 times a week. I was flying the First Lady on one occasion into Shreveport for a big luncheon we raised $400,000 for. I was a busy pup. But when I got up there, I started realizing that I don't hear anything about ideology. I don't hear about a return to the Constitution. I don't hear anything about downsizing government. I don't hear about anything about getting the states recognized as sovereign, independent states again. I'm not hearing about this, and when I bring it up, all they want to talk about is demographics and money. And that's when I realized that there aren't two parties. There's one party, the Republicrats. And even though I was chairman of the party at that time, and even though I had overseen 11 campaigns and won all 11 of them, my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I walked away, I resigned. But this is different. This is not a party. You folks are people. You folks are people of every size, shape, description, color, origin. I don't care what it is. You are America. You are who I was fighting for all those years when I thought that the party was fighting for you. And that's why I'm here to fight now. So how do we fight? If we can't fight the beast on our own. Well, a while ago I reminded you that this victory of mine back in July, and it was sweet. Oh, it was so sweet. But this victory of mine was not my victory. It was our victory. Well, this is not my war. This is our war. If we don't win, none of us wins. I can't win it. John can't win it. Jeff can't win it. You can't win it. But we can win it. And it's the only way it's ever going to get won. Everybody. The only way to get this beast off of our back is to get it off of everybody's back. To demonstrate that, I brought an email. I got a lot of emails. And I try like the dickens to answer all of them. I really do. I get a lot of phone calls, and I try to answer those. But this particular email struck a chord in me. It started out very politely, very gently, congratulating me on my victory, our victory, and saying that he would like to get started. How does he go about doing that? Well, I wrote him back and I said, well, if you mean by how do I get started, how do I take this beast on one-on-one and beat it, I hope that you reconsider doing that. Unless you are equipped to fight that kind of battle, you're best off not doing it. Now, if we were invading Normandy tomorrow morning, I would love to be there. I was a captain in the United States Army. I understand that commitment. And if there was going to be some bleeding, I'd be one of the first ones to be standing up there so that somebody didn't have to bleed in my place. But I guarantee you I wouldn't be there. I'm 58 years old, 2 heart attacks, I'm overweight, I'm still beautiful, and I got a bad back. I don't think I'd be packing 110 pounds of gear and weapons all wet up a beach. I don't think I'd be there. I would be at a desk somewhere in a factory somewhere, freeing up an able-bodied man who could go fight that battle. Well, before you want to go off and run into the cave and take individual battle in mortal combat with this beast, look at yourself. Are you fit for that fight? Are you capable of fighting that fight? If you're not, leave it to somebody who is. But that doesn't mean that you can't help. It doesn't mean that you cannot support. You can't make bullets. So he asked me, wrote back, he says, no, he said, what do I do? I want to know, how do I get out of this business of paying taxes? I want to know how to stop them. So I wrote him back, and I gave him a bunch of things that he could do. I said, go to truthattack.org and join, enlist, make a commitment to do something about it instead of talk about it. Make up a bunch of cards, business cards. They're real cheap. You can get them at Office Depot and print anything you want on them. Print what income tax, truthattack.org. Carry them in your pocket everywhere you go. When you stop and have lunch, leave one with a tip for the waitress. Whenever you're at the car wash, post one up there on that bulletin board that every car wash has for cards. Whenever you go to the bank to make a deposit or a withdrawal, leave 2 or 3 of them there on the little table where you have all the checks and the deposit forms. Wherever you go, sow these little apple seeds of truth. Lead people to the truth. You don't have to explain anything to them. Order a set of signs that Truth Attack sells below cost to get them out there that say, what income tax, truthattack.org. Put them in the busiest intersections in your city. Infect thousands of people with the truth. Raise those doubts. Make that point. Make that issue known to them. Make them know there is not a frivolous but a genuine issue about the income tax. You don't have to tell them what it is. It's only important at the beginning that they understand that there is a genuine issue, because the first step in any change in the law, any change in society, has always been to propound the issue. The second has always been to stimulate public discussion. The third has always been formulation of a consensus. And then that leads to public opinion, and that leads to political action. It's happened that way with the abolitionist movement. It happened that way with the civil rights movement. It happened that way with the prohibition movement, with the women's suffrage movement. And that's the way it's going to happen here. Now, I can't get out there and do all of that. Jeff, can you get out there and do all that? It's not lawyers. Lawyers can be the legal arm, but the legal arm can't do it, because by ourselves, as long as the public is ignorant, and as long as the courts and the government can count on that ignorance, they can ignore this arm. They can laugh at us. We don't wear the black shirts. We don't have the gavel. We don't make the calls. All we can do is make the pleas. The right arm is you. You're the advocates. You've got to win this war. We have to do this both from the political side and the legal side. But I tell this gentleman how to do that, and I gave him some ideas. And he came back and with a very disturbing response. And at this point, and I should have known something because the second note was in sort of in large fonts. And I could see he was getting a little excited, I thought, but he was getting a little tense. There's a difference. But he comes back and he, in all caps, screaming at me, "Your answers do not help one bit in getting the IRS out of," here's the word, "my pocket. All it does is fund this truthattack.org," which I never asked him for a penny for the organization. I just asked him to work. It says, "You beat the system. You won. And yet you cannot help others to be free." I cannot help anybody to set himself free. All I can do is hope that he does. And then again it comes back. He tells us, you ought to change it to scam of the week if you haven't got a quick solution, to get it out of my pocket. And he said, "So again, I ask you to help me," and he's got me in all caps. "Get the government out of my," and he's got that in all caps, "pocket. Or shut the hell up." Now, here was a man who was really seeking my favor. At the same time, though, there is the difference. He is still fighting his battle. It's still about him. It's still about his money. It's still about his freedom. And you've all heard the description of the difference between heaven and hell being where, you had a 2-foot fork. In the hell, they're gathered around a huge feast, and they've got 2-foot forks, and they can't get this fork to their mouth. And that's hell. And in the next room, you've got heaven, and they're all gathered around the exact identical table with their 2-foot forks, but instead of trying to get this fork up to their mouth, they're feeding each other. If I worry more about your freedom than I do mine, and believe me, I do, because I'll sacrifice my freedom for yours. I swore to sacrifice my life for it, and I'm standing ready, willing, and able to keep that obligation to this day. Then if we are all more concerned about the freedom of each other, then that's what will make the difference between this community marching forward to victory or continuing to march in place, or worse, march in retreat. I wrote the gentleman back. I wrote this gentleman back, and I was trying. I try to be nice, even when I'm being very nasty. And I have been accused of being the nicest, nasty SOB in the world. I had a judge tell me a while back, he says, "Mr. Cryer," he says, "I've never seen anybody take somebody off at the knees and make them feel like they were being privileged." But I wrote him back and I told him, and I kind of Dutch uncled him, I guess, because in a way I sympathized with him. In a way I could see and feel that he was frustrated. In a way I could see that he really did believe and understand. He was so caught up in what he could do, what he should do, what was his solution, that it's just like sometimes when you're up to your butt in alligators, it's hard to remember you came to drain the swamp. And I felt like there was a little bit of that in his situation, as rude as he was. And I wrote him back. I said, "To be frank, sir," he said, "you have 3 choices. You can continue to cry about it in all caps and oversized fonts, which accomplishes nothing but may make you feel better, but rarely does. Second, you could forget about it and concede your slave status, which would fit the easy part of your quest. Or third, you could do something about it, but that would take some time and effort, which you would rather not expend. If you think you're smarter than Larkin Rose, Irwin Schiff, if you think you can do a better job in court than Sherry Jackson, then go for it." He wanted me to tell him how to beat the IRS in court. I can't tell somebody that. what that Andre Agassi, he can't tell me how to play tennis to where I could win a championship. This is a gift. And this is why I was given that gift. But I could tell him how he could help us all win. And I wrote him back. So I told him, I said, I don't feel like I need to justify what I'm doing here to somebody who wants his grapes peeled for him. If you're not willing to get up and do something and help us to get the monkey off of your back by getting it off of everyone's back, then the least you can do is stop slinging your tears and whatever it was I said at those who are doing something about it. Lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. Now, the reason I'm spending so much time talking about this email is that this email isn't from this gentleman. This email is from this community. The way it was, the way I hope it will never be again. I'm hoping that by these groups like Steve Hemfling's Free Enterprise Society, Paymon's Freedom Law School, Joe Bannister's Freedom Above Fortune, and all these other groups, John Contmeyer's Save a Patriot Fellowship, and a lot of people, thousands now, of truth troopers who have enlisted at Truth Attack, that this combined effort on our part will start making us realize this isn't my battle, this isn't your battle, this is our battle, and we've got to win it or we've got to lose it. And this email that I got from this gentleman is what really drove that point home to me. And when I got that, that's when I decided that's what I've got to talk to these people about. It's got to quit being about you. It's got to quit being about me. It's got to quit being about your paycheck. It's got to start being about your freedom and your neighbor's freedom and your other neighbor's freedom and your cousin's freedom and your great-grandchildren's freedom and your great-great-grandchildren's freedom who have not even been born yet. That's who you have to fight this battle for. That's who you have to win it for. Now, the ending of the story, I'm not going to leave you hanging. The gentleman writes me back a little bit hat in hand. And he said, I really don't want my grapes peeled for me. I just want directions to the vineyard. And if there was any, I can't think of anything else this man could have said that make me turn around and spend an hour writing a lengthy email to him explaining exactly why it can't be about his wages. And pretty much what I've told you tonight. That this isn't something that we can do. And the example I gave him in that email is, when his comeback there saved what might become a very, very close and strong friendship in years to come. Because I might never have responded to this man again, but he's back in and he's ready to fight. But as I pointed out to him, I said, if you think about it in military terms, if you had a field up here that was occupied by your enemy, and you desperately needed him off of there, and you desperately needed to occupy it yourself for your own security and for your own safety and your own freedom. And this hill is defended by overlapping machine gun fire and artillery and landmines. And no matter how many men you send up that hill, every one of them is dead before they can get 100 yards. Are you going to keep sending more men? Are you going to keep sending wave after wave of martyrs and accomplish nothing? Of course not. You're going to find a different way to attack that hill, a different way to take it. What you're going to do is you're going to start attacking it by sniping at it from outside. You're going to start attacking, making a legal attack on these artillery positions, capture them, and start using those artillery positions, which I consider to be the courts, to fire on the enemy instead of on us. You're going to start using truth, a weapon of mass instruction, to take the will to fight away from your enemy. And you're going to destroy his weapons by using his weapons against him, because as he abuses you, that gives us weapons, it gives us rights that we can pursue. So after you've done that, then you can run up that hill, and you can plant the flag of freedom on it, and you can banish the enemy. But you can't do it by continuing to do what you've been doing, and it's just getting a lot of good men killed, a lot of martyrs. So that's, I think, what we've got to do, and what this community needs to think about is whether or not something that's bigger than us is too big for us to carry. And I think that my response to that is that if there's not something bigger than us to fight for, then there's nothing worth fighting for. It has to be bigger than us. It has to be more than us. In the long run, like Mallory said when he was questioned about, but Professor, what about the economics in the long run? In the long run, we're all going to be dead. Our legacy is not going to be what we have. It's what we leave. This generation came up and was handed a semblance, at least, of a free country. And we're going to be the first generation in 230 years to drop the ball. Because if we don't stop this right now, if we don't regain our Constitution, if we do not restore the Republic, and we do not preserve freedom, not just for us, but for the next generation, then we will have been the ones that dropped the ball. Benjamin Rush, one of our founding fathers, may or may not hear much of, commented after Yorktown, when Cornwallis surrendered, or he didn't surrender because he was too big of a coward to surrender. He sent an underling. When he was taken at Yorktown, Benjamin Rush said, "The war for American independence is over, but the American Revolution is only beginning." Every generation of Americans has had to fight that revolution. Now, this particular situation, we're not talking about an enemy abroad. We're talking about an enemy within. We're not talking about an enemy that's threatening us. We're talking about an enemy that has us under occupation. And we're not talking about an enemy that's going to become one of us, as the Greeks became Egyptians, but is going to turn us into slaves. This income tax, coupled with the Fed and phony money, is turning the middle class into an endangered species. And when you have only two classes, you're either going to be slave or master. Which are we going to be? What are your grandchildren going to be? What are your great-great-great-grandchildren going to be? Slaves or masters? If you can't guarantee that they'll be masters, you've got to make doggone sure they're not going to be slaves. And we can do that. Truth Attack right now has got both arms flexed. Both arms are ready to go. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough money to swing a lot. But we've got the support of a lot of good people. We're forming a legal arm. And Jeff and I will be meeting, and Larry B. Kraft and I have met. John Green is working with us. Other attorneys are being tapped. And we're putting together a system that will allow and facilitate your striking back. We're putting it together. This doesn't going to mean anything to you, but for every violation, every day, the IRS loads your wagon with ammunition, and we're using it for ballast. Every day, there are abuses, violations, disclosures of tax return information. In my case alone, there were over 50 disclosures in writing of the fact that there was a criminal investigation going on about me, where he wrote letters to my clients to scare them off. But that was a violation. On at least 40 of those occasions, in either interviews or in correspondence, he disclosed a grand jury proceeding was going on relative to me. That's a violation of the law. Each of these things is actionable in a simple, straightforward. And I have signed confessions from this gentleman because he was so arrogant, so indifferent, so confident in his immunity and his being above and beyond the law that he actually, in his own memoranda of interview, MOI as they call them, memorandum of interview, confessed to making these disclosures and signed them. I've got signed confessions on from him. There's going to be a heck of a lawsuit filed soon. It's already in the drafting. It's being drafted right now. Now, when everybody knows they have this right, and I have seen time after time after time, I've examined cases. I pulled up a bunch of summonses that were sent out to this gentleman's banks, and across the top, for criminal investigation. Bang, there's $1,000. Bang, there's punitive damages. Bang, there's costs. There's attorney's fees. Why aren't you in federal court already? Well, they don't know. Somebody's got to tell them. So you know these Sokolov ads that you see, you know, if you've had mesothelioma or if you had jungle rot of the foot, you may be entitled to compensation. Well, you're going to start seeing that from Truth Attack. You may be entitled to compensation. Look at this thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you answered yes, check with us. They set the terms of engagement on terror. Now, in addition to that, we are talking about judicial determination that one of their men has violated a rule, regulation, or statute and violated your rights. Once a judicial or administrative determination has been made to that effect, it's mandatory termination for that employee. How many of you invoked that? How many people have you had fired from that? You probably did invoke it, Bob, but how many people knew you could do that? Well, how many people know you can do that now? Kind of grows fast, doesn't it? We need to make the IRS afraid. When you are sitting there and you've got these Gestapo fanatics that really get off and they enjoy, you know, that some of them are doing it strictly out of just pure sadistic pleasure. Some of them are doing it out of just plain stupid compensation for their feelings of inferiority. I don't care what their problem is, but I want them off of your back. Because by getting them off of your back, I'm getting them off of my back. We need to make them afraid to go out of the office when they see one of their colleagues 2 years short of retirement cleaning out his desk. That causes fear. Now, this is their terms. They set the terms of engagement. I think it's time we engaged. Now, how many people here either have been subjected or have heard or know of someone who has been suggested to what they call a lock-in letter, where they tell your employer or someone's employer that no matter what he put down on his W-4, you will withhold as though he were single and had zero dependents? All right, I see a few hands out there. You know what the cap is on that? That's $1 million damage limit. You can only recover $1 million for up to $1 million for a unauthorized collection practice, because that's a levy. That's a levy of wages. No assessment, no notice, no demand. We need to be looking at these things. We need to be digging these things out. Now, in the meantime, what is your part on this thing? You got both arms. And why does this political arm become so important to the legal side? John Cottenmeyer and I were talking about that at dinner, that it takes both. And this is the main reason. You have people that go in every day and they tell a jury, I don't believe I'm liable for an income tax because there's no law saying I'm liable. They tell juries, and that's the truth. And they tell juries, I don't think that what I have is income because it doesn't meet the definition of income under the Constitution and the 16th Amendment, unquote, from the old codes and from even the new code, unquote, right out of there. Just fails, it's not within the definition of income, within the meaning of the Constitution and the 16th Amendment. Should be excluded, deducted. I don't believe that if I did have any income, that it would be taxable because it's exempt. It's outside of the taxing authority of the federal government. Or it's exempt because of fundamental law. I have a fundamental right to earn a living. You can't tax my fundamental rights. You can't tax my right to go to church of my choice. You can't tax my right to speak freely. You can't tax my right to vote. And you can't tax my right to earn a living through any lawful occupation. They're exempt. So they tell a jury that. And the jury says, guilty. Now, why is that? Because the jury doesn't know any better. Now, whose fault is that? You bet. It's up to us who do know, because the people who don't know can't tell them. We've got to tell them. We've got to get out there and make them know that there is a genuine, not frivolous issue about the income tax law. Even if they don't understand what that issue is, as long as they know that there's a real, genuine issue, they will not be likely to send a man to prison for disagreeing with the IRS on this genuine issue. They will believe him that he believes this because it's a genuine issue, not frivolous. The teeth come out of the monster. The beast loses its teeth. Who else stops being afraid of him? We're talking about Judge Wazansky, not by name, but Charles Wazansky, one of the mega black shirts. Great guy, tough guy, who complained bitterly about efforts by the Internal Revenue Service to intimidate him, to make him rule their way. And he warned them publicly that if you try that again, you're liable to show up in jail on contempt. This was quite a man. We need a few more like him. And the IRS knows there are still men like that on the bench. The IRS knows it's just a question of time before these issues do come before a Wazansky or a Hand or a Taft. We still have people like that. Clarence Thomas is one of them on the Supreme Court. Scalia is another. We have the means, we have the ability, but we need to get that monster off of their back too. And if you think that they're not out there threatening judges the same way they are you and me, you're wrong. There have been just too many instances of that. I know of one guy who told me personally that he witnessed a DOJ attorney remind a judge during pretrial conference that his son was in the middle of an audit right then. Now, what was that all about? Was that an expression of brotherly love and concern? I don't think so. Now, so if you've got the people knowing that they're being stolen from, knowing that the best part of the living they've earned is being taken away without any right to do so, that's going to make a monumental difference in how your congressmen act. It's going to make a big difference because these people run for the tall grass whenever the truth comes out. What you're going to see Congress turn around and say, IRS, I can't believe that you've been stealing from my constituents. I am shocked. And they're going to say, stop that right now. I don't care if they feign ignorance of this. They're not ignorant. They know. I don't care if they try to save their political hides. All I care is that I want that government put back on the 1,500 calorie diet that our founding fathers intended for it. Because that's what allowed it to get too big for its britches. I have to cover my coat up a little bit here. That's what allowed the government to outgrow its britches. That right there, that was a breach in the dam. That and the big crack that Justice Marshall put in McCulloch v. Maryland when he said that necessary didn't mean necessary because it didn't say absolutely necessary. And not delegated didn't mean not delegated because it didn't say not expressly delegated. Clinton would be, he would cry if he read that. Because we're talking about spinning in 1819 way beyond what is. So what I'd like to see tonight for you folks is a change in your direction, a change in your heart, a change in your emphasis. You folks were led here tonight. You thought you came here of your own volition. But the fact is, if you look back, there's no place else you could have been. Your being here tonight is as unavoidable and inescapable as my having been led to that courtroom on July the 9th. I had doors slammed in my face, and sometimes into my face, all of my life. I've had wonderful things happen, and I thought that my purpose in life was to solve my clients' problems, to make their lives better. I thought my purpose in my life was to make the law and the people where they come into contact meld into a just result and work the way it was intended to work. But a revelation came upon me, and I'm not claiming to be Paul, but on the road to Damascus, but it was just about like that. That was my purpose in life. That was what I set out to do with my life, and I did it for 35 years. And I've enjoyed it, and I've accomplished a lot, and I've made a lot of lives a lot better. And I've even made a living doing it. I mean, how more blessed can somebody be? But then it came to me, that may have served your purpose, Brother Cryer, but now it's time to serve mine. And he let me know that the reason I was put here was to save the Constitution he gave us and the republic it promised. And I'm going to spend my last breath doing just that. And I hope I live to at least long enough to see it start back on the road to that. The first step is this income tax issue. Put it back on its diet. Make it get back in the box eventually. 56% of the federal budget is spent on departments, not just expenditures. I'm talking about total departments, cabinet departments, that you can find absolutely no justification for in the United States Constitution. 56%. Now, roughly a third of the federal budget is the income tax, personal income tax. Now, do the math. We still got some more trimming to do. They've still got plenty of fat. Not only that, but now that we're on fiat money, they could just print some more of it and pour it out here. And now everything that we've got is worth twice as much as it was yesterday. And they can get taxes on that too. That was profit. You know, that's not deflation of money. Inflation of your price, that's profit. So we need to get them back in, and I've got to do something with it. Because frankly, let me just give you a little tidbit, a little personal thing, and then I'm going to leave you with that. And then I've got a question for you, not to answer me, but to answer you. In 1995, when I had that massive heart attack and was told by 3 physicians after I got out of ICU that they had no scientific explanation for my being alive, I knew I was going to live. And I knew I was going to be okay. That was one of the 2 times that I got the bing, you know. The other time was the Constitution and the Republic it promised. And you get these things rarely in life. And I'm blessed to have one because at least now I know what I'm here for. But when I look back and I see all of these things, I can see where I was led to here and couldn't have been anywhere else. But in 1995, I was not afraid to die. I knew I was dying before I got the bing, you're going to be all right. I was looking at that screen in the cath lab. I was watching them trying to jab in there and try to get to it. They couldn't get it open. I knew where it was. Lawyers learn an awful lot about medicine, don't we, Jeff? We can't do it. We can't do what we do without knowing an awful lot of medicine. I knew where that was. I knew I was a dead man. And oddly enough, I was all right. I looked back on my life, and I was satisfied that I had lived myself a proper life. I'd done what I set out to do, and I'd done it as best I could, and I treated my man the way that I thought my Savior expected me to. And so I loved him, and I've loved my neighbor. My tasks here are complete. My work here is done. I wasn't afraid. But let me confess something to you. Since that second ping, save the Constitution I gave you and the republic it promised, I'm terrified of dying. I'm afraid of going up there and leaving my task, my purpose here, undone. I'm actually, for the first time in my life, afraid to die. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to go up there and look Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Patrick Henry and Paul Revere and all of these other gentlemen in the eye and say, well, I tried. I wouldn't be here for the purpose of trying. He didn't tell me, try to save the Constitution I gave you. That wasn't my job, was to try. My job is to accomplish this. Now I've got a question for you. What led you here? What door is slammed that brought you to this room tonight? What events made you be in the right place at the right time to hear and to know what you know that other people don't know? To make you understand what's at stake here that they don't even know is at risk. If you ask them, do they live in a free country? They'd tell you, sure I do. And they wouldn't know a free country if it jumped up and bit them on the butt. But you know that. And they don't. So what makes it that you know that? Why were you given that knowledge? Why were you given that understanding? What was the purpose? What is your purpose? What are you supposed to do before you die? And what are you doing to make it happen? That's how important this is, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't about you, and it isn't about me. That Constitution was divinely inspired, and the more that you realize and you read about it, the more you study it, I've been studying it ever since I fell in love with it in the 7th grade. You realize it couldn't have happened by just mere mortals. You know, the more you know about it, the more you realize what the dovetails and how everything meshes. It's a perfect wagon. And all we had to do was follow it. So what's your purpose? Would you be sent here just to listen to me ramble on? You know, because I'm a rambler according to the judge. I rambled pretty good that day. And so I don't want to sit here and tell you I've come and told you something tonight that you didn't already know. But I want you to sit back and I want you to look at the past 30, 20, 50, 80. John? Years. Look back at all of these years. Your childhood, your adolescence, who you fell in love with, what you did for a living, what you took an interest in. Why would a third grader take an interest in Greek mythology? I don't know, but it prepared me for this. Everything that's happened to you has led to this moment, this time, this place. Do you believe that that's a coincidence? Do you believe my sitting here and telling you, bing, save the Constitution he gave us and the republic it promises? It's just a coincidence? Or is it a cause? And so I'm here to ask you one other thing for me. Right now, here comes I got my gentleman saying, me, my money, my taxes, me. So I'm finally I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask for something for me. Help me stop being afraid to die. Help me restore our Constitution and the republic it promised. Please, you've helped me once before. Help me again. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for that inspiring speech. And folks, to bring tonight to an end, I'd like to bring to you your master of ceremonies that you're going to meet more tomorrow. But tonight, Mr. Dave Von Kleist is going to share a ballad, which I think it would be pretty appropriate for what Mr. Tommy Carr had to say. If you, David Von Kleist.
I'm just going to move this around. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking. What I am going to do, though, is I want to dedicate this song to Tommy and all the other people out here that understand the message that he brings. It is not I, me, and my. It's united we stand. It is we, the people. It is what part of divided we fall can we not cognate? It's the true meaning of vigilance. I don't care what GW says on we have to be vigilant. That we got to get them, and we're going to be vigilant. It's not about vigilance. Got nothing to do with us watching Al Qaeda or Taliban or Osama or Saddam. It has everything to do with us watching them. That's what it's all about. Let's see if this is going to work. This is semi-unplugged. Here we go. Many years ago, our families came from far away to build a better future and to find a better way. At first it wasn't easy. There were times they had to fight, one by land or two by sea, the lanterns in the night. They pledged their sacred honor, and they established liberty, and they wrote the Constitution for their posterity. To tyrants they were terrorists, and they were called the enemy. But these patriotic rebels pledged their lives so we'd be free. Don't let it slip away. The framers tried to warn us. Forever vigilant is what we have to be. Be on your guard, protect your Constitution, or your republic will become a tyranny. And as this country prospered, there were those who couldn't stand to see the common people as the rulers of their land. A small cabal of rich men then meticulously planned, regaining their control with an economic hand. For many generations, and through the countless years, their money paid for influence and their tactics played on fears, until each politician, corporate leader, CEO understood they had to play along or say they didn't know. Don't let it slip away. The framers tried to warn us. Forever vigilant is what we have to be. Be on your guard, protect your Constitution, or your republic will succumb to tyranny. There are those who don't believe this evil story could be true. But if you look and think, you'll see just what they've done to you. A third of all your labor, every year they tax away. And how they spend your money, you don't have the right to say. Our country now's awakened, and our eyes are open wide. We see how they deceived us, and we know just how they lied. It's time for restoration. Yes, it's time to do what's right. And although we may not want to, if we have to, we will fight. Because we understand just why the framers warned us. Forever vigilant is what we now must be. And we're prepared to defend our Constitution. Armed with the truth, we'll defeat this tyranny. We will not fail, and we'll march to victory. Yes, we will stand, and together we will be free. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. There you go. Weapon of mass instruction.